Being rich is certainly subjective, but one of the most widely accepted figures for determining which countries are the richest is by their economy size, or GDP. Now, a high GDP doesn't necessarily translate to a country having wealthy citizens. Let's take India as an example. So at the time of making this video, India has a GDP of around 3.7 trillion US dollars, which sounds like an awful lot, and of course it is. But when you consider that India has a population approaching 1.5 billion, that really isn't a lot. Especially when you take into account that Germany has a higher GDP but a population some 17 times lower. 3.7 trillion means that India has the 5th largest economy on Earth. It recently eclipsed the UK and over the coming years is set to explode. It won't be long until the Indians leapfrog both the Germans and Japanese for economy size. This is predicted to be as soon as the year 2028. So as it currently stands, by economy size, the 10 richest countries on Earth are the US, China, Japan, Germany, India, the UK, France, Italy, Canada and Brazil. So that's 2 countries from North America, 4 from Europe, 3 from Asia and 1 from South America. Now, it's a little tricky to give an exact figure, but the estimated economy of the entire planet is said to be anywhere ranging from 90 to 100 trillion US dollars. To make things easy, let's just call it 100 trillion. That's around 80 trillion British pounds, 92 trillion euros, or 30 trillion Kuwaiti dinar, which is the world's strongest currency. There are around 8 billion humans on Earth, which means if we were to equally distribute that 100 trillion across everyone, each person will be worth around 12,000 US dollars. Now, of course, that's not how it actually works. That 8 billion includes everyone, including newborn babies. According to the World Bank, Monaco, the country with the highest GDP per capita, has a figure 20 times this, with each resident having an average GDP per capita of around 230,000 US dollars. Burundi, on the other hand, has a figure some 50 times lower, the lowest on Earth, at just 240 US dollars per person. What's kind of nuts is that the 10 richest countries on Earth by economy size have a combined GDP of around 70 trillion US dollars. That's 70% of the planet's entire GDP. These 10 countries are home to just under half of the planet's entire population, at about 3.7 billion. The US alone accounts for over a quarter of the global economy. And in fact, the US, China and Japan combined account for exactly half of the entire global economy. These 3 countries have a total population of around 1.8 billion, meaning 1.8 billion contribute the same value to the global economy as the other 6.2 billion. So what would the world look like if we were to remove the 10 richest countries? Well, the planet's population would shrink to 6.2 billion, and Russia would now be the world's richest country. Russia's economy at the time of making this video, according to the IMF, stands at around 2 trillion US dollars. Although given the current circumstances, it's hard to know what its true value is. So the top 10 richest countries on Earth now looks like this: Russia, South Korea, Australia, Mexico, Spain, Indonesia, the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and then Switzerland. The combined GDP at the time of making this video of these 10 countries is around 13 trillion US dollars. So a very significant size, but nothing compared to the current top 10's combined amount. So that is 3 countries found solely in Europe, 3 in Asia, 1 in Oceania, 1 in North America, and 2 transcontinental countries, found across both Europe and Asia. To call Turkey even remotely European is kind of clutching at straws, as the European part of the country accounts for just 3% of its total size. However, this 3% also accounts for around 10% of the population, as about 2/3 of Istanbul's population sits on the European side, west of the Bosphorus Strait. Russia, on the other hand, finds about a quarter of its total land on the European continent. This, interestingly, accounts for over 3/4 of its entire population, with most of its highest populated cities being found in its west. It's quite crazy to see countries like Australia, the Netherlands, and Switzerland now within the top 10. They all have relatively low populations, especially when compared to other countries in our new top 10. Australia, the Netherlands, and Switzerland have populations of just 26, 18, and 9 million respectively, whereas Indonesia has a population of around 275 million. So now that we've removed the world's 10 richest countries, this is how our new world looks. North America has been completely decimated. The Pacific now meets the Atlantic north of Mexico, likely causing Mexico to see a monumental change to its climate. As Brazil takes up around half of the South American continent, this continent has essentially been cut in half. Its new shape is narrow but long. Africa remains untouched alongside Oceania. Although Asia has now lost its two largest countries, that's countries found solely within the continent, it hasn't taken as big of a hit as North or South America has, as the continent is so large. On the other hand, Europe has been decimated, well, Western Europe that is. Ireland has become rather remote, and Belgium, the Netherlands and Luxembourg have now formed a three-way island landmass within Europe. The Mediterranean now meets the North and Baltic Sea throughout Europe, which has broken apart, leaving Eastern Europe to now become the dominant landmass of the region. So now that the world's population is 6.2 billion and the global economy is 30 trillion, this gives a new GDP per capita of just under $5,000. So removing the 10 richest countries has made the average human around 2.5 times poorer in terms of individual wealth. Of course, this is just an average, that's not how it would actually work. So in this made-up scenario, Russia would be perhaps the single most powerful and influential country on Earth. It would be the richest by economy, the largest in terms of land size, and the 6th most populated. Russia would also massively benefit from the world losing China and the US, as although China and Russia are kind of allies, they do compete for regional power. Removing China would unquestionably make Russia the most powerful country in Asia, and without the US, perhaps even the world. Russia competes with the US for natural gas and oil exports, meaning if we were to lose the US, Russia would absolutely dominate this space. Removing the world's 10 richest countries would of course have some other detrimental consequences. For example, many international development initiatives and aid programs are funded or led by the wealthiest nations. In 2022, the 5 biggest foreign aid spenders were the US, Germany, Japan, France and the UK, which would all be removed in a hypothetical scenario. Some of the world's most innovative and technologically advanced companies are headquartered in these countries. At the time of making this video, 9 of the 10 most valuable companies on Earth all belong to the US. Removing the US would now make Saudi Aramco the world's most valuable company. Can you think of any other implications that might occur if we were to remove the 10 richest countries? How would the world look? Would it be a better or perhaps worse place? Let us know in the comments if you have any other interesting ideas. And as always, thank you so much for watching today's video.